My friends, this has been an exciting 2 weeks. We haven't been here for a little bit. We missed last week, but it's been an exciting period. As you know, we've just finished one of the landmark activities of our time, the Republican National Convention and then the Democratic National Convention. Mitt Romney emerged as the candidate standard bearer for the Republicans, and guess what? President Barack Obama achieved the distinction of being the candidate of the Democratic Party to run for a second term for President of the United States of America. That's a great achievement for an African American. It's a great achievement for people of color all over, and great achievement for those of us who are engaged in progressive politics and a civil society. Of course, there were issues that somewhat made us concerned, and that was obviously there's an ongoing issue with respect to Medicaid and Medicare and whether there will be cutbacks in the programs. There will be ongoing concerns about housing and jobs, and to a certain degree, jobs dominated the discussion. Every candidate, or both candidates, tried to lay out the fact that they thought that their programs would lead to more jobs. But I think that Bill Clinton probably set the stage better than anybody. Bill Clinton, former president of the United States of America, said, wait a minute, before you blame the current administration on the economic recovery and the jobs that are available or not, don't forget, it was the Republican, the former president, George W. Bush, that under his watch, 12 million Americans lost their jobs. Now, he said, this president, Barack Obama, has led the way for a recovery. We've stopped the hemorrhaging, he said. And now, while we've not totally recovered, we're on the way. And his idea was that we're on the way toward recovery. And obviously, the Republican, Mitt Romney, and his running mate, Ryan, disagreed. Later on CNN and the radio and the news outlets, they disagreed and felt that somehow or another the President, Barack Obama, was to blame for the fact that 12 million Americans have lost their jobs. But, one could debate that back and forth. One of the things that President Obama said that I think is important, and that was he has a strong and ongoing commitment to education. And what does that mean? It means that his idea and his thoughts are very, very poignant when it comes to making sure that Americans and American children and American adults get educated so that they can be employed. And he took the position that it was important to make sure that colleges cut their tuition rates by 50%. Some say, where's he going to get the money from? But he laid it out. He said, look, that's my goal. We've got to encourage our people to be educated so that they can be employed. What about that employment? Well, let me give you some important statistics, my friend. Right now, there is a gap between what the schools are producing and what the job market looks like. Write this down right now. At this particular moment, there are 38,600 jobs wanting to be fulfilled in the computer operation and service business. That means that 38,000 jobs are vacant right now in the Chicago, Joliet, and Naperville area. What does that mean? It means that the schools are not preparing our workforce to take those jobs. But take another statistic. There are 16,250 odd jobs that are vacant, going unfulfilled or unfilled in the health service and operations industry. Those jobs, again, require skills that our schools are not able to help educate our people so that they can get those jobs. But that's not all. In the communication industry, communication and marketing, there are 10,000 plus jobs that are available right now in that industry that our schools are not preparing our current population to fulfill. That ain't all. There are 9,000 plus jobs that are available right now in the financial service industry. That ain't all. There's a demand for 6,000 engineers right now. So what does this mean? It means that our schools are not preparing our citizenry to fill those jobs in this area in Chicago, Joliet, and Naperville region. Now, my challenge is this. What are we going to do about this? And what do our schools have to say? Years ago, I was working for then Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson as his campaign manager. And I had a meeting with a guy by the name of Jack Welch. Jack Welch was the head of General Electric. Later on, he would retire. Jack Welch had another chap that worked for him by the name of Frank Doyle. And those two gentlemen said, and this is 1988, Jesse Jackson ran for president in 1988. Now, what is that, 24 years ago? 24 years ago, there was a report prepared by the Committee on Economic Advisors that was submitted to the president at that time. And what did it say? It said that the critical challenge that we as Americans have right now is to retrain our workforce. We have to be prepared to train a workforce that is employable. We didn't do it, and at this particular point, a lot of jobs are gone, and because our workforce is poorly trained to take those jobs. Well, look, I've talked long enough. I don't want to make this a monologue. The important thing is that we have to recognize that we're challenged. Today, I've got a couple of gentlemen in the studio with me. One is a longtime friend, and he is the principal of Hyde Park Career Academy, and I happen to have the distinction of having graduated, some may say been put out of that school many, many years ago. But anyway, I graduated from Hyde Park High School and did have the distinction of working with that school many, many years ago to make it a career academy. But anyway, Principal Thomas Trotter is here with us today, and we're going to have him to kind of introduce and give himself a little background. And another is a newfound friend. But he's a good organizer, and I respect every good organizer, having spent 40 years practicing the art of organizing, and his name is Juan Jose Gonzalez, and he is the Chicago director of something called Stand for Children. And this is a group, Stand for Children is a group that is concerned about the whole idea of making sure that we have quality education and our schools are able to serve our children. So anyway, both of these gentlemen are with us right now, and I want to get them engaged. But first, we want to have Brother Trotter to say who he is and kind of give us a little color, a little background on himself, where he come from. I know where he came from, but some of you in the radio audience won't know that what school he went to and where he grew up and all of that good stuff. And we want to have him kind of give you an idea of where he came from and how he got to be the principal of one of the greatest high schools in the city of Chicago. Brother Trotter.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Dr. Finney. This is a great honor to be here. I grew up since you mentioned growing up, I grew up in Inglewood initially and traveled when I was about 15 years old, moved to Woodlawn. I spent the rest of my life in Woodlawn and ended up going to college at University of Wisconsin, Parkside. Got my college degree and my master's from Northeastern Illinois. And I decided I wanted to go into education. Initially, I wanted to be in athletics, so I coached a little bit, but education became my passion. So I'm definitely excited to be here. And I ended up working at Finger High School. Actually, I started on the west side at an elementary school called Mary McLeod Bethune, and ended up moving on to Finger High School as a dean and had an opportunity to land an assistant principal job at Hyde Park Academy. They were going through some transitions, and they felt they needed somebody strong that can deal with culture and climate in the building. So I went there, and not knowing that I was going to end up being principal, and things just sort of fell in my favor, and the principal left, and I landed the position of principal, which I thought I was really not ready for, but I had to learn quickly. So since then, we've dealt with a lot of challenges, and now I've been there 5 years as the principal, going into my 5th year now. So, and I'm excited that we've actually moved the school in the positive direction.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Trotter, and we're going to have plenty of time for you to expand upon what you've been doing at the Hyde Park Career Academy. But anyway, we have another guest, and that's Brother Juan Jose Gonzalez. He is the Chicago director of a new organization, in some respects, called Stand for Children. And but anyway, we'll talk and expand more about that. But Juan, tell us about yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Juan Jose Gonzalez. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I came to Chicago about 6 years ago. I started off as a community organizer in the immigrant rights movement. I worked with a lot of high school age children who were trying to get to college, who were immigrant students themselves. One of the barriers for them was kind of the ability to have legal status, or their parents, not being immigrants themselves, didn't really understand the educational system here in the United States. Like my parents, they never even graduated high school back in Mexico. So it's a pretty daunting thing for many children in the immigrant community to be able to get to college and even be successful. In that experience, I really got to really understand that one of the big challenges in community organizing is not just jobs, not just healthcare, not just community safety, but education of our communities, Black and Latino as well. So I decided to come to Stand for Children, which is a nonprofit organization. We work with to educate. Our goal is to make sure everyone graduates with access to and prepared for college. And the way we do that is primarily working with parents, teachers, and community residents so that they are empowered to demand the best educational system possible for their children and for the people of their school district. So that's myself, and I'm really glad to be here, and hopefully we can definitely talk about what it takes to get kids ready for college.
Well, let's sort of, thank you very much, gentlemen. And for my listening audience, we are here on WVON 773-591-1690. That's 773-590-1690. Now, we've talked about jobs, and, the statistics I threw out there a bit earlier are true. And if you don't believe me, you can look at Google, if you will, the gap in education and jobs, and you'll find the statistics that I just recounted. And you'll begin to plot on how to deal with it. I had a conversation with Cheryl Hyman, who is the chancellor of City College, to get an idea what she was going to do to help retrain America's workforce through the academic offerings of City College. But anyway, what is the state at this particular point of our public school system in the city of Chicago? And either one of you, that's a lob. You can take it anywhere you want to, Brother Trotter or Brother Gonzalez, any way you want to. But I just want to kind of get this warmed up here, because it's important that we begin to think about what the state of our schools is. And of course, we've got a strike that's pending. But before we even get there, we need to kind of get an idea of what the state of our schools or status of our schools are now. Are we doing good, or are we doing bad? And the issue is, how do we get to a handle on where we are? We'll take you first, Brother Trotter.
Well, I think it actually depends on who you talk to, whether we're doing good or bad. I think we're doing a good job of moving our students in the right direction. If you read the recent articles in the paper and looked at our data, the scores are up across the board in the city as in high school. So that's been something to sort of be.
What do you have to say
excited
on that,
about.
Juan?
Well, I think that the statistics show that our dropout rate is decreased, so that we are graduating about 60% of students from the Chicago public school system, which is a kind of a recent high. And I think we can definitely credit some of the changes of not only Arnie Duncan, but some of his predecessors after that, kind of moving in the right direction. I do believe, though, that we're in for a little bit of a shock and a little bit of a bucket of cold water when we switch to something called the Common Core Standards, which is 48 states are switching to a new level of assessments for what kids need to learn year to year to be able to graduate ready for college. Mm-hmm. And I think that the ACT is a good measure of kind of, are you ready for college? And we have been making progress on that, but our average citywide in the city of Chicago is less than 21. And 21 is the number that's necessary for students to be considered prepared for and ready for any type of post-secondary education. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely some work to be done. I think there's even more work to be done when we switch to this Common Core assessment, and there's going to definitely be some panic. But I think people need to be ready to tackle it.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's kind of an introductory observation by our two guests. We're going to have to take a short break right now. This is Leon Finney, your host of Another Perspective on radio, Black Talk Radio. And we're going to take a short break. I want you to remember our call-in number is 773-591-1690, 773-591-1690, 773-591-1690. Call us. And now we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. And we have in our studio today two guests, Juan Jose Gonzalez and Brother Thomas Trotter. Now, they were holding forth on whether or not the schools are improving. The president was asked, and during this last sojourn in Charlotte, North Carolina, for the Democratic National Convention, are we better off, or are you better off as Americans today than you were yesterday or 4 years ago? The question is, are our schools better off today than they were 4 years ago? I think that Brother Trotter says that they're improving. Juan says, well, they're getting better, but there's work to be done. Let me sort of put the question a different kind of way. What about this ability of our public schools to prepare this next generation, and to a certain degree the current generation, for the job market of today and for the foreseeable future? Do we have the infrastructure in our schools, be it in the primary, secondary, or post-secondary? Do we have the infrastructure there to prepare a workforce to go to work? We have over 12 million of us needed jobs. And right here in the city of Chicago, 500,000 jobs are going I shouldn't say half, but 250,000 jobs are going unfulfilled. There's this gap here. We don't know where it ends. But clearly, I think that something has to be done. And my question is whether or not our schools at this particular point have the capacity to not just graduate people, but prepare people for careers of now and for the foreseeable future. I'm going to throw that question out because it begs to be answered. Because I think that many of us think that just because you get a high school diploma, that's great. You got a high school diploma and you got out. Then you went and got an Associate of Arts degree, maybe from the city colleges, or you got a baccalaureate degree from some college or university. So what if still you're unemployed? And so I think the question is, and I'm not asking you guys to be economists, but you are advocates for education, and you are an educator, Brother Trotter. So the question is, are we prepared at all levels of our public school system to do the job?
I think, Dr. Finney, that we are prepared. We're getting more prepared. Juan touched on something that's actually an agent to get us prepared when he talked about the Common Core standards that's going to be implemented this year in the freshman and sophomore levels in English and math. So I think it will be tough the next couple of years. What the Common Core standards will do differently than it's done before, and it's actually to address the issue that you opened up with, Dr. Finney, that our kids need to be prepared better by exposing them to more rigorous text in terms of what we teach them. But the big piece, I think, that I love about the Common Core and the rollout is that it's aligning everything up from kindergarten through 12th grade. And that's, I think, is going to take some time for you start to see the really improvement, the growth that we want to see. But I think we're on the right track. And it's not just all the thought leaders have come together and have done this all across the country. So I think Common Core will answer some of those challenges in terms of preparing students and kids for college and work.
Okay, Juan, what does Stand for Children say on this one?
So I think that's definitely true about the Common Core standards. I think when the last 4 years, what education advocates and educators themselves have been able to better do is understand what is the problem with our infrastructure. You asked a question about what is the infrastructure lending us towards, right? So for example, I think we're finding out that by third grade, for example, you're not able to read, you're like 3 times more likely to drop out by the end of high school. Right? So that kind of creates an incentive to really focus on the kindergarten, first and second grade so that you really learn how to read, thus creating the good foundation and the good infrastructure, as you labeled it, so that not only you graduate high school, you're graduating with kind of a very good ability and understanding of knowledge that prepares you for college, right? So I think we've been able to identify some of these levers of like, okay, let's not just throw more money at the system because yes, money is important, but it's not solving it altogether. How are we using our money to better invest in our children and better invest in the right infrastructure to get our kids ready for college? So I think that given that we've been able to better diagnose the symptoms and the problems, we're better able to kind of address the situation going forward.
Yeah, but here's the challenge we have. We over and over again we hear that there's not enough money, that the public schools don't have enough money to pay teachers, Right now, at this particular point, we are on the brink of a school strike right now, and it's over money. The question is, with infrastructure in place, or do we have the money in order to make the schools work? And since this is a third rail, and I might as well lay it out there now, we've got a few minutes to deal with this. What about this school strike? And it's all about money. And if we don't open schools, we can't educate. Some say that when the elephants fight, the grass gets trampled. And the elephants right now are in the room are the Chicago Public Schools on one side and the Chicago Teachers Union on the other side. These are the elephants in the room. And they're tugging it out. Neither one appears to be moving. So will there be a school strike? We have 72 hours. Maybe is it less than 72 hours to know, right?
It's
So what do the
36.
what do the prognosticators say? No, September the 10th is doomsday, D-Day, if you will. And people and parents are sweating all over the city of Chicago. And kids don't know what's going to happen. Many of them are already gone back to school, and there's a good likelihood that school will be interrupted. I know that Hyde Park Career Academy is back in session because I passed by there the other day as we did something with truancy. So what's the story, you guys? What's going to happen?
So I think there's been negotiations going on for over like 10 months, or more than 10 months, 10, 12 months have been going on all year. A lot of progress has been made, but inevitably the school system is broke, right? They are draining their reserves this year to be able to kind of maintain operations.
When you say broke, what do you mean by that?
It means that not only do they are not generating new revenue to cover the day-to-day, because they weren't generating enough revenue, the Chicago Public School System had to drain part of its reserves.
Has your organization actually looked at the budget to make sure that we're not given a voodoo budget and there's no deception there? Have you looked?
Well, we've
carefully?
definitely looked at the budget for transparency. I think this year we were surprised by the level of transparency that came out in the Chicago Public School System budget. There is definitely a lot of cause for concern and a lot of kind of reason to believe that this is the real situation, given what we know about loss of funds federally. We also know our organization has been advocating at the state for increasing funds for the Chicago Public School System. So we know that the money is not coming from those two sources as it normally would. But there is a hope and prayers going out that we can come to an agreement, that the teachers union and the Chicago Board of Education can come to an understanding and can keep school going on time. So we hope to see that works out.
Okay. Brother Trotter?
I mean, I ditto pretty much what Juan said. I mean, it's just a tough spot for the mayor and Mr. Brizard because you simply just don't have money. And it's just a tough spot because the only people who get hurt here are our children. So it's unfortunate that we've come to this, but I really don't know what's going to happen because I know that the system is struggling for money, and I know it's about pretty much money. So I wouldn't want to be in their shoes.
There's definitely an opportunity here, though. It's not just about spending. I mean, we always want to spend more money whenever it's there, but it's also about spending that money smarter, right? So there's definitely an opportunity here with this contract to reward our best teachers in a new and an exciting way that will hopefully generate better results, right? They say the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, right? Mm-hmm. So we can't just keep paying our teachers or paying everyone in the school system in the same way. We need to figure out how we can get the best out of our colleagues in the education profession so that children really start to succeed.
Well, how about this? How about this as a wrinkle? And this is Leon Finney on Talk Radio, 773-591-1690. Please call us if you want to join in the conversation. What about this wrinkle? In the last 10 years, since the census of 2000, almost 200,000 African Americans have left the city of Chicago. That's a big number.
It's huge.
That means that we have less of a population base to educate. That, I think, plus other out-migrations that really didn't just start in 2010. The city of Chicago has been losing population for almost 3 decades, not gaining. And once the population that was even in our dearly beloved Woodlawn, and I remember when I started organizing in 1966, Woodlawn had 88,000 residents, 88,000. Now Woodlawn has less than 30,000 residents. That means that the schools that were there and have been there that were built For a population of 88,000, those schools are no longer required. Yet, when the Board of Education and others decide to close schools, there's this hullabaloo and great protest on the part of the community. Don't close schools. And obviously, the union, the labor unions, they don't want to see schools closed. Why? Because that means teachers will lose their jobs. This is another dilemma, is what I'm saying. And that dilemma, as we look at it, is how can we keep the schools open if they are not fully staffed and or occupied? If there's no demand for a school to be open, how can we keep it open? Is it better to close schools and consolidate and save what we can? Or do we sort of slowly go out of business, twisting in the wind? Now, that's another wrinkle that oftentimes does not get visited to the substance of and the question, and that is, how do you reconcile that? Do you guys have any answer? Anybody thought about that a little bit?
Not me. I know this, that it's hard to keep a school open if it's underutilized. And if a school has the capacity to hold 2,000 students and only has 500, and the system has to make the tough decision to close schools in those instances. And it's just tough.
Well, Brother Trotter, I can tell you, I can remember when I was at Hyde Park High School, we went 11 periods. 11 periods. Why? Because we had such a demand. There were at times 36 to 3,800 students in Hyde Park High School. The only way to accommodate them was to go those extra periods. Now we don't have it any longer. I remember when we turned the school from the general high school into Career Academy, we had at that time 1,900 students. And now, what's the student enrollment right now?
We're at about 1,500.
About 1,500 and holding, right?
Right.
Okay.
Holding.
But my point is that some of these things are partly a business decision, are they not? I mean, you have to decide what to do. Can we keep the schools open, and can you continue to employ the teaching force that a larger population required? And that then puts the union in a tough spot, because they're there to protect their workers, the members, right? Both in terms of the number who have jobs, but they're also there to protect the wages. So is this not a kind of a bind that we find our teachers union in?
I mean, there's two levels that people need to think about. Not only do we need to think about the capacity of a school building, right? We also need to think about its performance. How is it doing a job in educating children, right? There may be some buildings that are doing a great job of educating children, but they are under-enrolled. So we should reward those teachers and reward those principals by giving them more students to kind of have under their house, so they can definitely continue that great work and educate more children under them, right? If there's a school that is underutilized and underperforming, we need to consider the possibility that you're maximizing more money per child when you combine schools, right? For example, I was talking to parents in kind of the southwest side of Chicago, and they were talking about like, well, we want to get more of an art teacher or more of a music teacher at our school. And I was like, well, did you realize that under CPS policy, you get a full-time art teacher when your school is at least 750 students for an elementary school? And you guys are currently at around 500, right? There is an incentive for you to maybe inherit a couple more hundred students so that you can have a full-time enriched curriculum, because the cost becomes less when you have more students at your school. So there's definitely some rearranging to be done. And I think there's a lot more to be gained from that rearrangement in terms of maximizing resources for students. And that makes it's a win-win for everyone, right? If you go from a half-time art teacher to a full-time teacher because you have enough students, there's a win for the teachers union and a win for the students.
So what happens then, I guess, is how does the teachers union and the ranks of the teachers scale back? I don't know how many teachers there are now, but I remember when I was organizing, it was 27,000 school teachers in the city of Chicago to man 460-odd schools. So it was a huge workforce that was there. And so, but anyway, this is an interesting conversation, and I think that the challenge is for us to find a grain of truth. Nobody knows whether there's going to be a strike or not. But at this particular point, I think we're on the countdown for a strike. Now, we're going to have to take a short break, and we're going to be back in a few minutes. I want you to remember, and my call-in number is 773-591-1690. That's 773-591-1690. That's 773-591-1690. Call me. We're going to be on a short break, and we'll be right back. Hey, this is Leon Finney, your host on Talk Radio, the voice of Black Chicago. Well, we're here dealing with public education and public schools. And we've been blessed to have two great conversationalists. One with us, they are Juan Jose Gonzalez, the executive director or director of an organization, an advocacy organization called Stand for Children, and the other is a great principal of the great high school that I happen to attend, Hyde Park Career Academy, Brother Thomas Trotter. So anyway, but before we go, we have a caller, and that is Rosetta. Rosetta, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. The name is Rosita.
Okay, I'm sorry, Rosita. Yes.
Okay. This is Rosita, and I have an organization called Chicago Alliance of Urban School Educators, which is, I know Juan and all these other people, but the issue that we're facing in the black community, and I've tried to get this out at the board meetings, we have our own civil rights fight, and it really bothers me that issue never is highlighted. So I'm going to say here, when you have 14,000 African-American teachers gone since Jackie Vaughn was president, we were 54% of the population. When we have 76% of student expulsions on African-American students, when we have 70% of the E3s that TPS is giving out on 19% of the population of students, as well as over 70% of teachers who have been charged and terminated are African-American. Now, I'm saying this with all demographics as we look at it. The African-American community has bore the brunt of Renaissance 2010. I was a union worker, and I made them very aware of this. But during negotiations, we don't even broach that subject. And I'm saying to everyone, we're under attack, our entire school community. And we're being gentrified, and our community is rallying around fights when our primary concern is our own survival. And so my organization, we meet every Tuesday at Operation Push. We organize our entire school communities in the African-American community to educate them about the data, because the data is a picture of what reality is for us. And so under the Lewis administration, we have 33% of our African-American teacher population gone in 1 year. And last year they closed, with all the 100 schools that closed, 97 were in the African-American community. When are we going to wake up and start talking about issues that affect our own survival? And it is annoying to me to hear the messaging.
Rosita, hold on, because we want to get in a dialogue here. Now, you've made some profound observations, and let me kind of recount them. You said that you are your organization is Chicago Alliance of Educators, right? Am I right, Rosita?
It's called.
Yeah. All right, and you represent that when that there was a period of time that 54% of the teaching population was African American. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yes, in the late 90s.
In the late 90s. And you also said that that of the 97 schools that were closed, they were all in the African American community. Is that what you said?
Yes.
All right. And then you said 76% of expulsions were among African Americans. Am I right on that?
Yes.
So, so what do we make of these very serious observations that you have set forth? And I don't know whether or not any of our respondents or our panelists are here, but these are very, very serious questions you raised. I don't know whether you, Juan, know anything about the number of African American teachers has seriously dropped, or whether this figure is accurate or not. I don't know if you have any.
Can I just say where I got it? If you
go ahead.
go on the state report card, the ISB.net, and look under teacher demographics, they have it back to 2000. In 2000, we were 40.6% of teachers. We're down to 19.6 as of last year, and with 16 schools that closed last year. So we're hoping that we will at least be 13 to 14% of the teaching force, with a population of students that are 92% minority.
Wow.
And when we add Hispanics, we're talking about 33% of the teachers less. It will be less than that next year. That's what it was last year, with the 92 that are minority, including
Wait a minute,
Hispanic.
Rosita, are you suggesting, are you saying that, now, because we're going to have to let somebody else talk in a minute.
Yes.
Are you saying that when we add the Latino population and the African American student population, that 97% of the kids in the schools are African Americans or Latino? Is that what you're saying?
92%.
92%. So,
Yeah.
all right, so wait a minute now. We got to unpack this a little bit. So, how many of the teaching corps that are teaching in the schools are Latinos? Do we know that?
I think, well, if you take the 19, it must be, because together combined it was a little over 33%.
Of the teachings?
So that would be, I guess, the Latino is about 15 or 16%. And I'm guessing because I'm adding the numbers up, but it's around that range because
right.
together.
All right, now here's what I'm going to observe. These are jobs, right?
Right.
And any way you look at it, even if you have a strike pending, the teachers still are fairly well paid. So
Yes.
we have lost. What you're suggesting is at this particular point, some big, good-paying jobs are not available to African Americans as teachers and Latino Americans that are teachers. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly what I'm saying.
All right. Okay. I think I got enough juice out of this lemon. So let's kind of get and see what Brother Trotter and Brother Gonzalez have to say on this one.
Okay.
I'm probably not the expert on that. As the leader of a school, I usually try to make sure that we have the best teachers in front of our students, and I sort of have to simply leave it at that. And that's
Okay.
That's sort of how I look at that.
All right. You're going to duck that one. Okay. I got you.
So what I would say is there's been a lot of kind of movement done at the state level about the entrance exam for teaching, right? And we found is that when you raised the entrance exam for what it takes to start becoming a teacher in the state of Illinois, a lot that adversely impacted the Latino and the African American population. And it's not because the exam is biased or discriminatory. It's because our African American and Latino population graduating from the Chicago public school system is not prepared for college. You know, students are graduating high school, not really prepared for college. If we were doing a better job investing in the infrastructure from elementary, middle school, and high school, so that these kids graduate high school ready for college, so that when they go to college or when they think about what careers they want to choose, there's an incentive to become a teacher, and then there's an incentive to do so and do that job well, right? So it's this vicious cycle where not only have we lost teachers, but we're now replacing African American Latino teachers with qualified African American and Latino students or teachers of the future. So I think there's a two ways to look at this, right? One, we could be losing some, but we're also not replacing our generations of teachers with an equally trained African American and Latino population.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is kind of deep, and I'm gonna have to say this. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to not to deal with this issue because we have to advance the interests of the African American community. And I recognize the propriety and efficacy of everyone being able to teach and to our children, and I want the best for them at all times. There's no question about that. But there seems to be a disparity here, and there seems to be a loss of and less than. Now, I don't know what to do about it, but I know that this is something that we've got to grapple with, because these statistics, if true, are not good when we look at the overall viability of the African American family. And you're dealing with the leadership, I think, in these companies. So anyway, I'm going to have to take the next caller. I don't have a name here, so I'm going to say, who's the next caller?
Hi, my name is Judy.
Okay, Judy. What's your
Hi,
comment or question?
Comment and question. I teach in Chicago public schools, and I heard, I think his name was Juan, say that the teachers aren't able to pass the exam and statistically that's not true. CPS has a preference for hiring at this point, and it does not include African American teachers. Then the other gentleman said,
Wait a minute, hold on a minute. CPS has a preference, and it does not include African American
It does not include African American teachers. There was a lawsuit that was won by African American group who took the CPS to court over a 7-year span. African American teachers were laid off, E1, et cetera, deemed inferior. They won their case. This was during the time of Michael Scott, as you know.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He's no longer alive. Yeah.
Correct. During the last year of his tenure at the board, and so they won their case. So there is a preference. I can only speak to my school. We just hired 11 new teachers. Not one of them were African American.
And what school is that? What school is that?
I don't want to mention the school, but not one was African American. Talked to some other friends who are also currently teaching. They had openings. Some people retired, this and that. Not one African American was hired. Then to speak to the point of our pay, we may earn a decent wage, but we don't receive all of our money. Our money funds the system. They have us on this extended pay, and which really is a joke because we see one check and the board subsidizes what they need with our other checks. So,
Judy,
yes,
let me
we
ask you.
earn a good salary, but we don't get paid our salary.
Judy, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Are you prepared to go on strike Monday?
I don't want to, but I am.
And why are you going to go on strike?
I have to because I don't like the way the system is framing academia for our students. We have Common Core standards, and our children are going to be grossly left behind.
So you have a school teacher, and she has represented that she believes that public school administrators, and I don't know how that works now, are selectively identifying those people who should teach in the schools. And she represents that none were hired of African American descent at her school to fill not one of 11 positions. I guess this is kind of troubling. And if this is going on, I don't know how you avoid a confrontation at some particular point from some civic-minded group that decides to take this on as a cause. If this is true, I have no idea. This blows me away. First, it blows me away that we've gone from 54% of the teaching population that was African American back in the 90s now to less than 19%. That's a drastic drop. But anyway, I know that this is a third wheel, and I'm going to put you guys on the spot, but I just want to say this to my listening audience who are very faithful to me. This is something that we have to take a hard look at. And if it's true, I think that we'll have to try to see what is at root and at underneath this sort of move and shift where we've occurred. There may be some natural reason for why African Americans are no longer teaching. Maybe African Americans don't want to teach anymore. I don't know. But the bottom line is that there's got to be some answer other than to have this sort of blanket statement out here that African Americans are not afforded the opportunity to teach, and nor are Latino Americans afforded the opportunity to teach, and indeed Euro Americans, if you will, or Asian Americans, or others than African Americans and Latinos are getting the job. So, but anyway, we're going to take another caller, Brother Randolph. Randolph, are you there? What's your question or what's your comment?
Good afternoon, Dr. Finney.
Yes, sir.
I graduated from Hyde Park High School. Go Hyde Park Indians.
Oh, Hyde Park, HP. Right, okay.
Yes, sir.
They changed our Indian man to the Thunderbird, but that's okay.
Did they? Oh, okay. Yeah, back in '66 when I graduated.
Well, that's right. I was around organizing '66.
Yes, I remember you and Dr. J.R. Hargraves and Squire Lance and all.
Oh, yeah. You got it. You got it.
Yes,
you got
sir.
my pedigree. Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm calling because I am concerned, and I'm a product, as you know, a product of the public school system. But I wanted to comment on the attitude of the parents and their children in school. I volunteered for a while. As a matter of fact, I was principal of the day for a school over in my area, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. And the attitude of these teachers, of the parents, is some, I should say, the ones that I've listened to. I sat in the office and listened to these parents, and the way that they talk to the administrators there and the teachers is ridiculous. Some of them use profane language in front of their children.
Okay.
And that is not good at
Brother
all.
Randolph, that is a no-no, and I agree with you.
It is
now, Brother
totally
Randolph,
disrespectful.
Brother Randolph, I wish you'd have called earlier so we could engage more in this conversation, but guess what?
Yes, sir.
I've got to get out of here. I have 1 minute to be
Okay,
able
Dr.
to.
Finney.
I have 1 minute, but I want to thank you for your call, and I want you to know that I'll be right back here next week, and we're going to continue this discussion along with others. But here's where
I'll see if I can get you next week.
Yes, sir. Here's where we are. We've been out door to door in the streets working with the principal of Hyde Park High School, Brother Thomas Trotter, encouraging 100 Truett kids to go back to school. Leon Finney, was out in the streets of Woodlawn, knocking on doors, trying to find kids to get them back to school. Guess what? We've got to be engaged in helping make sure our kids go to school. They can't get an education if they don't attend. We've got to also be about the business of making our streets safe, and we've got to make sure that our parents are encouraging our students to go to school. We've got to make sure that our schools are viable and healthy, and our teachers are teaching, and everybody is working in order to make it happen. And this is Leon Finney, and you can run and tell that.